Hey, it's Loti. Welcome back to Real Talk Season 2. Honestly, we've got some amazing guests lined up for you. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking to Rory Gibbs, who is Olympic gold medalist and two-time world champion in rowing. And we spoke about mental health, we spoke about training, we spoke about what it takes to be an elite sports person, but also what he's going to be doing next. And for the new listeners, welcome. And our podcast is supported by Make Life Kind Charity. And Make Life Kind Charity is a charity that supports young people across the UK with many topics. And if you really, really want to support us, head to makelifekind.co.uk. But also, you've seen a just sick tracksuit I'm wearing, right? You can get this on Make Life Kind, also on TikTok as well. So do your bit, help educate young people. Thank you for coming, honestly, and we really appreciate it and exciting to talk about kind of your career and what's next for you and what you've achieved as well, which is really important. Obviously, for those who don't know, what is it that you do or you currently do?
So this will probably be most people, but I was out in the Tokyo Olympics and the recent Paris Olympics, and basically I rowed for Great Britain. So I was in the men's 8, which is sort of the big fast crew out in Paris.
Amazing, and that's not a small feat because you have gone on to achieve so much. But when you started out rowing, what was the end goal? What was the goal that you wanted to kind of achieve?
Well, to be fair, from a young age, I sort of played rugby, and that was kind of my passion, and kind of always saw myself cultivating a career in sport. And I transitioned into rowing quite late when I was 18. And just over the years, sort of the goals built upon that. But I guess, so it's not like straight away I was like, I'm going to go be an Olympic champion and that's what I want to achieve in the sport, try and build a brand there. It was, whilst I was always ambitious, it was have fun, get involved, try and win at Henley, try and represent my country at under 23 level. And then for our sport, the Olympics is the pinnacle and winning Olympic gold medal. So that was, I guess, sort of the
pinnacle, I guess. Well, I mean, I won't say unexpected, but what's the most surprising thing about being a professional rower that people out there might not know?
Interesting. I think, all sports have got their sort of trials and difficulties. Rowing is a really awesome team sport, so you're going to build some really strong bonds and friendships, which a lot of people might not realise. It's tough work, so you're going to be plugging out a lot of training, a lot of miles, and we can talk about that a little bit later on.
Absolutely.
And so whilst it's really hard, you come out of it having built some really strong friendships and then an awesome set of skills that will hopefully set you up in business afterwards. There's a big crossover between rowing and the business world. So.
No, I love that, and we're going to talk definitely some more about that. Now, I've got a personal question from me, actually, that's personal to me. I can't swim. Can I be a rower?
Well, I mean, that's not ideal. But also, I don't think I've ever... No, that's not true. I have capsized once or twice in the pairs back in the day. If you're in the men's 8 or the women's 8, a big crew, it's unlikely that you're going to capsize. But I do recommend that you know how to swim before getting in a rowing boat. But since I've been in the national team, I have not capsized. So if you can get yourself into the team before capsizing, then you might be all right.
I'll give it a good go. Do you know what? That's one thing. I've got a fear of open water, so I think I'll stick to maybe just watching it for now, definitely. So in terms of your training, and tell us what does a typical day look like during, especially intense training periods. So let's say prior to the Olympics, what does that look like?
Okay. I like to give it like the hardest, most bleak day's training, like a winter's day training.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Maybe on a training camp. So if we had a tough day, let's say we're on training camp at altitude, so oxygen's thin, so it's hard to breathe, so adding that little stimulus there, we might be doing 20k on the water in the morning, and then a weight session which might be 90 minutes long, and then another 20k on the rowing machine, so 40k in a day with sort of a 92-hour weight session. And I'm on 6'4", 95 to 100 kgs, I could be burning or consuming around 7,000 calories just to maintain my weight at that point. That's a hard day's training. Yeah. Other days it might be a lot lighter, but then the intensity is a fair bit higher. So you're constantly sort of changing the duration, the stimulus. But those are long days, and when it's wet and cold, that adds a bit on top as well.
I can imagine that's made me think actually. We're training, we walk around in the rain and we moan about it, but that will take a lot out of you mentally. So how do you mentally prepare for that?
I guess it's the dream and the vision that you're here, you're doing it with your peers, and also you're held accountable. So you're in the men's 8. If I don't want to do this session, the guys can't get out on the water, so I'm held accountable. I have to turn up. we've all got the same sort of goal and drives and vision. And once you get going, once you sort of warming up, you kind of don't mind too much. It's the wind which is an issue, because that can get really cold.
Can imagine.
But the rain, it can sometimes just be kind of cool, kind of fun to be out there rowing in the rain and the wind and be like, this is pretty grim. This is grueling, but we're toughing it out, we're sticking it out, and
absolutely
you end up having a good time in a weird way.
which is mad, but that's it. That's kind of adrenaline as well. So you mentioned accountability. So would you say kind of you're accountable for each other and yourselves when you're part of an 8, especially?
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, there's a lot of sort of soft skills that translate from rowing into the corporate world, and one of the great things about rowing is it's such a team sport, and there is no sort of superstar. There's no one necessarily that's going to pull that boat along. But if I were to, there's a term in rowing, I don't know why, it's called catch a crab. And effectively it's when your blade, the spoon, catches the water whilst the boat is going forwards. And so effectively the blade gets caught in the water, you catch a crab, like a crab, and goes deep, and then it could pull you out the boat, or you can just stop the boat dead. And so you're held accountable essentially to make sure that you're working on your technique, you're staying in the rhythm, you're doing everything that you should be doing in order to give everyone else in the crew the opportunity to succeed. So we're constantly sort of testing each other, supporting each other, calling each other out to make sure that we're pushing in the right direction.
Absolutely. So for those young people, it's a great test of teamwork, skill, efficiency, because it takes a lot out of you. Now, have you ever been at a moment where you felt, okay, my body's giving up, I feel like I can't go any further, and how did you get through that?
So I guess that's kind of twofold, because it might be a sort of a more of a long-term thing where you're just going through the motions of the training camp. It's long and it's day to day, and it's between sessions where you're like, oh, hard work. And so then you just got to remind yourself why you're doing it. You've got to communicate. Communicate is key, and that's something that I've really learned over the years. Making sure you're talking with your peers, the guys in the boat, your coaches, your family, your friends. Let them know your struggles, and get it off your chest, and they can generally give you some really sound advice. It might be that maybe you need to do something better in your free time and whatnot. And then the flip side is, when you're struggling in the moment, so maybe like in the actual race, out in Paris, I'm getting through the K and I'm like, I'm done. My body can't do anymore. I'm done. My eyesight's coming in, my ears are popping, I've got dribble down my chin, I've got nothing left. But then adrenaline kicks in, and it just sort of happens. You're in the rhythm. You try and listen to the coxswain, and you trust a process that you will deliver in that moment. So there's it's kind of twofold in the sense that it could be in the moment in a race, or it could be drawn out over a long period, and communication and just trusting the process, the sort of the main themes there.
I love that, and I love also that you mentioned mental well-being, how you potentially speak to people that are around you, and as males, obviously it's a tough world out there, and we don't we get vilified for sometimes speaking as a male. Have you gone through any situations where, apart from the sport, that you've had mental health struggles, and how did you manage to kind of wriggle yourself out of that one?
I've always been like fairly headstrong. I can overthink things occasionally, and that's a typical attribute of athletes. You can sort of look at things that maybe other people aren't necessarily seeing. But I've never really had anxiety or any sort of mental health issues until leading up to the Tokyo Olympic Games. And so that was a very unique situation where I was 26, I was single at the time, just won the Olympic trials. I was like, here we go. Going to my first Olympic Games, this is going to be epic. Elation. And then literally 2 weeks later, COVID, the news everywhere, absolutely blowing up, crazy, lockdown in your kitchen. And then the Olympics was cancelled, potentially postponed by a year. And so suddenly deselected, trials back open. Anyone that wasn't selected for Tokyo now had another opportunity. They were ripping PBs in their kitchen, completely re-energized, motivated. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? I've just been training for the last several years for this, and potentially it's not going to happen. And so I actually, it's fairly tame, but I contracted tonsillitis 5 times in the space of sort of 8 weeks. And it was just kept coming back. And so I was advised to remove my tonsils for the delayed games in a year's time, because actually, interesting stat, there's something about 70% of Olympians contract an upper tract infection around the Olympic Games. We got those taken out, and that was actually a really difficult procedure with some complications. And just off the back of having to move back home, being a 26-year-old single bloke, suddenly having these health issues, COVID, all about health. I just developed this sort of health anxiety that the only thing that was going to stop me from going to now this delayed games was my health. And so suddenly I was just like creating all these sensations that were real. I was feeling them in my body, and they were there. But I was just so dialed in and tuned in, and they weren't sinister or anything like that. But you can fabricate things pretty hard. And so I was naive, thinking about the future. It was the first time I was like, wow, what am I going to do next as well?
Yeah.
There was so much uncertainty and change, and it was all manifesting in these physical sensations. And I didn't really feel like I could communicate with anyone about it. It was too late. The games was coming up now. I had to keep this internal, and it was just so unhealthy. And so I really had some sleepless nights, struggled on training camp, and I limped my way through the last sort of few months leading up to Tokyo. And once I actually got out in Tokyo, that was amazing. I loved it. It was such an amazing experience prior to the final. So the final didn't quite go to plan, but I really enjoyed my time once I was out there because I felt like I'd made it. COVID wasn't going to get me now, and I was safe.
Yeah.
And so once I returned, I made a promise that I was going to understand why I felt that way and learn about it and kind of fortify my mind and make sure that I would never find myself in that position again. And so I sought out a therapist, and I think it's really important that we communicate. And you break your leg, you go see a doctor. You got any sort of mental issues going on, you see a therapist. Same sort of thing. You're going to get some therapy, and you can get full recovery.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of therapists out there with different practices and meanings, and you've got to find the right person that suits you. And so I found someone who really fit in with what I needed, which was very matter of fact and science driven. So firstly, he explained why my body was reacting the way it was, the fight and flight response. And so instantly I kind of felt at ease there. I was like, my body is doing that because of that.
Yeah.
And then it was about engaging your mind and not allowing yourself to drift off on those sort of sinister thoughts and stuff like that. And you kind of just had to rewire your mindset. So a big thing for me was, as much as I love my family, if they're listening to this, I had to move out, get my independence again as a 26-year-old single bloke. Again, bosh, stress off my shoulders. That was amazing. So changing your environment and your situation can have a profound impact straight away.
Yeah.
Seeking a therapist, communicating. And then I also had a big shift in my mindset towards my goals at the Olympics. So for me, being young and Tokyo, it was gold or die, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to win gold. It's gold or nothing. And I was so focused on external factors. I couldn't influence how fast Australia or Italy or Romania or all of these nations. I have no control over that. I can only control what I do. And so going into Paris, it was much more about delivering the best performance that I could deliver. Now, of course, I wanted to win. But I wasn't focusing necessarily on what they were doing. I'm in a lane sport. I can't influence that. And again, just that change in mindset for those 3 years really took a lot of stress off my shoulders.
Amazing. And you know what? Thank you for being so vulnerable about that. And you mentioned therapy, and some of those young people that are watching, probably going to relate to the anxiety, especially the COVID generation of young people who didn't get to be in school for their GCSEs or to be around, their friends and peers for a few years. The fact that a professional elite athlete has struggled with it has made it okay for them to not be okay. But it's not about how much the struggle gets you down. It's how you get back up, and you've just shown proof of how you do that, which is amazing. I was going to talk about, bouncing back, and it's, they always say, what is it they say? The comeback is always stronger than a setback. And you prove that, because we're now, fast forward 3-4 years later, you are now in Paris. What's the feeling? What's the emotions around you, around the camp, around your teammates? There's 8 of you that are going to go through war, but reality is there's more of you than that. Team. How did you feel at that point?
So firstly, Paris was awesome because it was like the nearest thing to a home games for us. And whilst I enjoyed Tokyo, being out in Tokyo for the Olympics, because of COVID, it was locked down. We had no friends or family. So Paris, you had all your friends and family out there, and that was an amazing environment. Yeah. And like I said, I changed that mindset to making sure that I just need to be in the best shape possible. And so I was able to train really well in the lead up to Paris because I wasn't too stressed out about the end result as long as we delivered what we were capable of delivering. And so I was in the shape of my life, loving it. I did actually end up having a bit of a hamstring niggle when I was out there. And so I had to sort of on board some of the tactics that I had a while ago. So I was actually doing a little bit of gaming in the evenings between sort of training, because I was just focusing on that. So whilst people were winning Olympic gold medals in different disciplines and everything was going on, I was there playing this Jedi game and just totally forgetting that I was at the Olympic Games, which is amazing, because it just really brought down the heart rate and everything. And then I was also confiding in my teammates, letting them know how I felt, telling my coach, and doing what was right for me, getting it off my chest. And so whilst there was always going to be pressure, and if you're doing something that maybe you love or it's meaningful, there's going to be challenges and setbacks and pressure around that, but it's how you can sort of cope with that. And communication was key. And actually, at the start line of that final in Paris, when I had all my friends and family down there, I wasn't really actually that nervous. I was actually more nervous for how I was going to feel at the end of the race, of how I was like, oh my God, this is going to really hurt, as opposed to, oh my God, in the next 5 minutes, the last 10 years of my career is going to be defined, right? Because we got 5 minutes to essentially define our career. So I don't know. It was just it's just a set of processes, and Paris was amazing. I loved the experience, and it was amazing to do it with my friends and family, and the guys in the crew. We all got on so well. It was a bit of a brotherhood. So
amazing. It gives me chills when you mentioned that, and also you mentioned your family obviously being there to watch. Now take us through that moment when you got past the finish line. Because if I remember correctly, Netherlands was second.
Yep.
And USA were third.
Yep.
And obviously Great Britain won the gold medal. How did it feel at that moment you crossed the line? And did you realise straight away?
Yeah. So it's it makes me smile when I talk about it. Maybe we can watch the race afterwards.
That's good.
We got a race where we can watch the race with my Cox's audio dubbed over the top, so you can get a real feel. It's a tricky one, because we were back-to-back world champions going into Paris, and we're racing, the same nations, largely the same crews. The personnel and the lineups can change year on year out, but through that season, we'd race these crews, and we knew that we were in of a good shout to win. And so, whilst I said I changed the mindset to be, we've got to do the best that we can, there was still a little bit of a sort of it's defending what's rightfully ours, if that makes sense, as opposed to, oh my God, what's just happened? We've just been coming fifth all year. We've just suddenly won. This is insane. So it was a little bit of relief, but undeniably, like crossing that finish line, it was in a world of pain.
Yeah,
but,
I can imagine.
I was sort of bent over my rigger, like trying to celebrate at the same time. But there was like a deep sense of peace and redemption as well for Tokyo, and contentment for my rowing career, and also just pride to have done that for my friends and my family and my country and the guys in the boat. It was peace, redemption, contentment, pride. Love that. And straight away, I felt all of those emotions.
Amazing. And that's such a snapshot into, because I can only imagine like the feeling and emotions you've got inside your body, and obviously you can't show them, because if you do, you'd probably jump in the water. But
I wouldn't have jumped in. I'd have slipped in. The muscles would have gone, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 100%.
I'd have slipped to the bottom, and that would have been the end of it. I'd have been
capsize. That would be another capsize moment.
Yeah, then I couldn't swim at that point. Yeah,
that would have been a great photo for the Olympics, though. Capsize winners. Yeah,
the winners all drowned. Olympic champions gone.
Gone. Just it. That's it. The heroes. But no, it's amazing to see and to hear like the feeling and emotions, because obviously you had that period, before Tokyo and in Tokyo, where you felt completely different to how you felt now, and you trained your mindset and the way you felt to get to where you are, and it shows that you've learned to work on how you're motivating yourself, which is amazing. Now, what would you say are small consistent habits that you picked up during your rowing career that you now continually use? I know you touched on some of it, but what would you say are some of the habits?
I think it's really good to have goals and actually write those goals out and potentially tell someone else about those goals. So in the national team, they started to introduce a bit of a review at the start of the year, but it was always something that I'd done at Brooks and even in the team for all the years that I was there. And it's not about brown nosing your coach or anyone like that, but you let your coach know, or your boss know, or your teacher know, or your parents know, this is what I want to do this year.
Yeah.
And you lay it out there, you put it on the table, and then it's just going to really help hold you accountable to actually materialize that and do it. It's very sort of intrinsic and, just sticking it out there. And so I guess that's a small thing that I think is quite powerful. Because we all have ambitions and dreams, and you have it in your head. But sometimes things change, and that's fine if things change. But maybe it doesn't change, and you wanted to do that, but because you've not really verbalized it and put pen to paper, you're not going to look back and be like, oh, I owed it to myself to do that. So that's something that I have done for several years, is actually write out my goal, and then within that long-term goal, I then might make smaller targets. So it could be an ambitious goal. So it could be to have gotten to the men's 8 and race at the World Championships. In order to do that, what do I need to do? Maybe I've got to hit a certain PB on a 2K test. Maybe I need to optimize my nutrition, or I'm going to need to improve my sleep, or possibly there's an area of my technique that I need to improve. And I've set a smaller time frame to accomplish those targets, right? So targets and goals.
Love that. And I think for the young people that are going to be watching this, it's important to know, because everything that you want to achieve is a dream until you put it down on paper. Then it becomes a goal, and you've put that you break your goals down as well, which I think is so powerful and underrated in this day and age, because everyone wants everything now, but you've shown that actually you can fail, and failure is okay. It's just how you bounce back from that. What advice would you have for any of those young people that maybe have got self-doubt about kind of where they want to be maybe in their career or in the future?
Yeah, I would say it's like I'm very ambitious bloke, and I've always sort of set dreams and goals, and from a young age I kind of wanted to be in sport. I thought that was going to be rugby, and then growing up, you might have your doubts. I had my doubts. I was like, well, maybe I'm not cut out for sport. What am I going to do? I'm going to university, I'm doing this degree, is it going to help me? And I was like, well, I don't actually know what I'm going to do for work. I think you just got to trust the process. And like I said, write out your goals. There's a ridiculous stat actually about setting goals and writing them down, and how much more likely you are to achieve them by putting them pen to paper. But I think just trust the process, that if you work hard and you commit to it, things will evolve and things will pan out, and everything happens for a reason. And so whilst you might have a little bit of self-doubt a number of years ago, I might not necessarily have known in the direction that I was going to go after my athletic career, opportunities will arise. And if you're there willing to take them, it's going to happen. So just trust the process, relax. I'm not saying just sit there and do nothing and just think someone's going to come my way. But just, be a nice person, and things will come your way, and it will happen naturally, and just trust that.
I love that. And you mentioned trust the process a couple of times, and I think it's really important, to believe in what you're going to do, and you had goals, maybe you didn't make it in rugby, but look, you came out with a gold medal,
Yeah, so I mean, rugby was the dream when I was at a young age, and things changed. And I'm very grateful for my experience in rowing and what I've achieved in sport, and so I wouldn't change it for the world.
Absolutely.
And that's, things change. So
100%. Yeah, I like that. Things change, because we, those young people watching might think, I want to be this person. I wanted to be an architect when I was younger. I can't even draw right now, but it changes. If you'd have asked me if I was going to be a public speaker now, probably would have laughed at you. But you're proof that actually you can redirect your path, is what you're saying, which is really important. Now, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, now probably your younger self pre-18, when maybe the rugby dream was on, what advice would it be?
Interesting. I would say, be open-minded and explore things and try out different things, different sports. And certainly if sport is your goal, it can benefit specialising in a sport from a young age. But actually, dipping your toe in different sports, you're going to learn new skills, soft skills, physical skills, a whole set, which is going to only strengthen your case for whatever sport you want to achieve. And you might find that actually you have a passion for something else. So I'd say just be open-minded, try out new things, try out different things, and communicate. And so if there's anything you're struggling with, certainly at that age, you don't know everything. And so speak with your coach, engage with your teacher, get as much wisdom as you can, because knowledge is power. And
Absolutely.
For me in rowing, it's all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
But there's some simple things in rowing that I probably could have done much better at an earlier age. And so possibly I could have gotten to an Olympic Games in Rio sort of 4 years earlier. That would have been ambitious, but what I'm saying is, take on the wisdom, because you might find that you can accelerate your progress much quicker than if you just sort of kept things to yourself and internalised it all.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I want to ask, actually, what's next for you?
Yeah, so I'm actually retired now. I competed obviously out in the Tokyo Olympics and the Paris Olympics. I'm 30 years old, so I could do another games or two. I know Cristiano Ronaldo has turned 40 today, I think.
Just today, yeah.
Yeah. So,
LA.
yeah, and LA is going to be epic. Maybe in 2 years' time I'll have an itch and I'll be like, oh, maybe I'm going to come out of retirement. But do you know what? I've loved my my rowing journey, and rowing, like I sort of said, it eat, sleep, row, repeat.
Yeah.
You're hammering the nail day in, day out, and I've devoted my 20s to it. And I've made some great friendships, and it's served me really well. But I'm up for getting out there and catching up with friends and family, and having a bit of a lie-in. And just doing new things. So I've actually just released a YouTube channel called Rowcouts. So it's at-home rowing-focused workouts. So you can just follow along. If you've got a rowing machine at home, you can hop on. There's going to be a playlist for everyone, beginners, more advanced. And generally, I'm just going to try and build my brand up a little bit. So you might see me on social media. Don't take the piss too much with some of the questionable content. And then I've got a couple of exciting projects that I'm working on as well. So hopefully, if anyone's listening, you might be able to. You might see that in a year or so's time. So Absolutely. I've got things going on. I'm really motivated and excited for the future.
Good to hear that there's a next chapter. And yeah, absolutely. I'd encourage you to go and follow Rory on social media and the channels. And it's going to be amazing. Yeah. I love the content you already do. Okay. So this is going to be even better. Now, we can't have an Olympian Olympic gold medalist in the studio without showing the medal.
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah, no, of course not. Right.
Please, can we see? For those, most people haven't seen one this close.
Here we go.
Just
over here.
Yeah, look at that.
Cheers, yeah.
Just look at that.
That's part of the Eiffel Tower.
Unreal.
Gold plated, so it's silver on the inside. It's not as valuable as people might think. It's invaluable to me.
Yeah, of
I'll
course.
be devastated if I lost it.
Absolutely.
You can't replace it. But yeah, it's not worth it if someone's going to nick it.
No, true.
Unless you're nicking it from a very high-profile athlete, and you'd be like, "This is
you're high profile.
This is Usain Bolt or something." Yeah, of course, mate.
Usain Bolt hasn't got this one, though. See.
No, he hasn't got that.
Hasn't got a Paris medal.
I'm a big fan of the Paris ones.
Look at that. That is amazing. Honestly,
so it says the event around the edge of it.
Yeah.
Around the outside. So on the bottom.
How proud do you feel?
Yeah, like I said, like the pride was there, like almost instantaneously, and it's like I said, rowing is not a glory sport, right? So you're doing it for your friends, your family, and your soul and yourself, and it's a great sport. You're going to build a whole wide skill set that will hopefully set you up afterwards. But there's a lot of sort of internal pride, like with rowing. It's tough training, and no matter your background, it is an accessible sport. Come from any background and get into rowing. And my crew, we had such a wide variety of childhoods. But if you want to be successful in rowing, you have to do the training. You have to do the 40k days. Like, regardless of your background, you got to sit on that rowing machine and you've got to put the yards in, and no one's going to do it for you. And so it'd be hard not to sort of feel that pride, to know that you've done what you've done with the guys around you. And of course, we had a lot of support from our friends and family and our coaches and whatnot. But I feel like that's something that will sort of stay in my heart forever, and something that I'll just forever look back on fondly and be very proud of.
That's amazing. And I love that you mentioned how easily accessible rowing is. There are rowing clubs all over the UK, so I definitely, for those young people who want to get into it, or however old you are, I'd recommend going for that. Now, because you are the first guest of the second season, I would love you to ask a question for the next guest. I can't tell you who the guest is because we're going to ask them that question. But what question would you have for them?
Maybe just something like, what would be your most fond memory from your career, or what they're in? So I'm guessing you get some guests from very different industries. Yeah. So what's their most enjoyable experience or fondest memory within that industry that they've experienced?
I'll make sure that I ask them that question, and we'll get an answer to you as well from that. But honestly, wow, it's been a pleasure. I feel like I could go and row. I know I can't swim really well, but you've inspired me, and I know you've inspired so many young people that are going to be watching this. The fact that you've had the struggles and and the tribulations, but and the mental health struggles as well, which not many people talk about, because we tend to think that elite athletes are bulletproof, and you just showed that you are human, but you can get through it with the right people around you. So thank you so much for coming here. Honestly, we really appreciate it. And do you have a quote we live by, actually? What would you say? A quote that maybe stands out to you?
Quote. So funny. I do look up a lot of quotes, and I'm like, oh, that's so good.
exactly
I love that one. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure it's a quote. But I say, I don't know. You make your luck is one that I quite like. So, but I might have to come back to you with one later. But I think you make your luck is a good one.
Yeah, I like that. You make your own luck. Absolutely.
So, like I sort of said earlier, you know, things will sort of fall into place.
Yeah.
And don't be too scared as to what might necessarily come later. Yeah. But like I said, don't sort of sit on your bum. You make your luck. So make things happen and work hard, and things will unravel and lead you in the right path. But
love that. Honestly, wisdom, dropping them bombs. Honestly, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate that. First guest on our second season, and I think everyone's going to love that. The fact they got to see, the uncut version of you, to talk about, your life really and how you got to where you are. So really excited to watch the rest of your journey. Yeah. And thank you for coming.
I'll just say if anyone's got any further questions and they're happy, I'm just reach out on Instagram or whatnot.
What's your socials? Instagram?
I think it's Rory Gibbs PT.
Yeah, we'll pop it in the chat as well. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah.